Century after Kublai Khan's failed invasion of Java, the imperial court was looking to re-engage in maritime Southeast Asia. Yet, imperial inattention had allowed fleets from Majapahit and the Thai kingdoms to essentially run the table in the southern seas. The Sultanate of Malacca offered a unique opportunity for the Ming. They were looking for a partner to keep the sea lanes clear on the strait, one that wasn't a burgeoning empire set to challenge Chinese influence in the region. Malacca was, essentially, a knowing pawn. The Chinese got a check on Majapahit and Thai power, and Malacca received a security guarantee from its imperial ally. And that security guarantee wasn't an empty promise, because 2 years later, a Chinese fleet arrived in Malacca, a fleet larger than any seen before. It constituted over 300 ships. The largest were 600 feet long, with 12 sails and a crew of 500 sailors. 27,000 soldiers, diplomats, and other officials lived aboard, dwarfing the population of the coastal cities where they stopped. This was the first voyage of Zheng He and his famous treasure fleet, a series of 7 missions stretching the whole of maritime Asia, from the South China Sea to the Bay of Bengal. Their task was neither one of exploration nor military force. Instead, they were a display of Chinese supremacy. Zheng He would come as a diplomat, dispensing gifts of silk, gold brocade, and other exotic goods. Yet the enormous fleet, sitting right off the coast, carried its own message. This great treasure fleet offered rewards with one hand and threatened retribution with the other. Align with China or face our wrath. Zheng He would make 7 voyages between 1405 and 1433, dramatically reshaping politics in the southern seas. Malacca prospered as a Chinese ally, solidifying its claims and influences under imperial protection, receiving no less than 6 visits from the admiral. And Zheng He, himself a member of China's Muslim minority, helped spread and foster the growth of Islamic kingdoms in the region. And as all this happened, Majapahit increasingly turned inward, tearing itself apart over royal succession and court intrigues, and ignoring the larger world. Over the next century, its vassals eroded like a beach during typhoon season. Majapahit still controlled the eastern Spice Islands, but the all-important strait now belonged to Malacca. Majapahit vassals in Sumatra, increasingly converting to Islam and sensing a shift in the political winds, began switching their allegiances to China, or allying with other Muslim kingdoms. And in 1513, the falling dominoes finally reached Java itself. A coalition of Muslim kingdoms captured Majapahit's coastal ports and drove the court inland to their rice terraces. Splinters of the kingdom would survive until 1527, but Majapahit's time as the dominant power on Java was over. Their successor, the Muslim kingdom of Demak, went about wiping Majapahit from the island, burning their leaf scroll chronicles and epic poems, relegating their old temples to neglected ruins. But Majapahit was not destroyed, at least not totally. Members of the royal family fled to Bali, taking their culture with them. They continued their Hindu-Buddhist faith. Scribes preserved the few royal documents they smuggled out, the historical records we have today, and artists kept Majapahit artistic styles alive. Ironically, the island that Majapahit violently dominated had become the last vestige of their way of life. To this day, Bali remains the last majority Hindu-Buddhist island of Indonesia. But Majapahit survived in another sense as well. Unlike Sriwijaya, which vanished from popular memory after it fell, Indonesians remembered Majapahit through the folklore, mythic history, and plays it inspired. That cultural memory of a powerful state uniting the islands lasted through centuries of Dutch colonialism. During the Indonesian independence movement of the 20th century, Majapahit became a rallying point for nationalists, a historical example of the archipelago united under one government, an argument that it was historically one nation rather than a constellation of kingdoms. And when the Republic of Indonesia won independence from the Dutch in 1949, Majapahit loomed large in the political imagination. The country's motto, Unity in Diversity, comes from a poem written during Hayam Wuruk's reign. Gajah Mada University became its first place of higher education. To this day, there is real pride in the Majapahit period. But for those outside Java, this nostalgia can have a darker connotation. For them, Majapahit's vision of unity felt more like colonialism and is reflective of a political system that's, to this day, dominated by interests on Java. But what lesson should we, as students of history, take from Majapahit? We can enjoy its stories and understand its role in modern Indonesia, certainly. But to Rob and myself, the biggest takeaway is their use of water. We've all been trained to look at maps and only see the land. The water is an empty space, separating countries. But Majapahit didn't see it that way. To them, the ocean was the great connector, not only a way to trade and project naval power, but a sort of fluid conductor that carried the electrical charge of human culture from island to island. The sea united people and merged their ways of life, creating something new. An empire of water.